Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Hello and welcome to Jen Taylor Rerouting, where being rude is never acceptable, but sarcasm is welcome and swearing isn't always a bad option. Let's get started. Thank you so much for joining me on Jen Taylor Rerouting. My goal is that every guest becomes a friend, and I feel truly blessed to know the people that I've interviewed. If you want to know more information about me, from being a guest on this show to my virtual assistant services for podcasters, or perhaps you want to be a published author, I have coaching and ghostwriting services for that. You can find everything that you want to know on jentaylor.net. Remember to give a shout out, share, like, give me some feedback on all of my interviews. I'm happy to join in on a conversation with you. Have a great day. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Christian Simone. How are you today?
I am fantastic.
I am so happy to interview you. I'm on your website and people can find you. It's called thechristiansimone.com. Super
Correct.
Easy to find. Also, when you do a search, I stalk my guests. So in stalking you, you can find your Facebook page. So tell me a little about who you are right now, and then I want to jump to the past.
Okay. Well, I am a 30-something, but I always tell people I'm about 95-year-old woman who is single, but had a lot of hard knocks, but is making the best of her episode right now. It's something that to me is kind of fun. It's interesting. It's not always fun, but then in the same breath, you're able to kind of look at things and say, wow, look how far you've come. It's kind of like the workout that you don't want to do that day, but after you finish, you never regret it. So that is who I am at this moment.
That is amazing. On your website, you talk about healthy looking different on everyone, which I think is a very important topic. I'm like the Wonder Bread white. I look like I grew up in Southern California. I didn't. I grew up in New England. But blonde hair, blue eyes, curvy. You're a Black woman.
Yes.
People can't see you, so they don't know.
Yes, very much.
And you talk about fitness for plus size women, and you are bold and beautiful.
Those would be words I would call myself. I grew up very opposite of it, very not bold, very much not confident, but over the years and with life situations, I've been able to change that and really just own who I am and go forward.
So let's take that opportunity and jump back. Tell me what year you were born and where, and some of your family dynamic.
Sure. So I was born in actually the day and month and year. So I was born on probably the greatest day ever in life, which was November 21st, 1985 in Dallas, Texas. That's the day, month, and year that I debuted into the world. And for my family dynamic, I started out, my mom was a single mom, so to speak. She was married when I was, I guess, conceived, but then after my debut, that kind of ended the marriage. And so from there for a few years, grew up kind of that's in a single mom home. She then in turn married someone and still currently married. And it just started from there, probably at the age of 5, a very tumultuous life filled with a lot of abuse. And really all facets of abuse. So there's your emotional, there's your physical, sexual, mental, everything, financial abuse. It was just that type of life. So I grew up extremely poor. I probably started working around age 8 under the table, like cutting yards, and was a housekeeper when I was in high school so that I could have money for not just, most teenagers, they want money so that they can go with their friends and eat pizza. This was for me to have the basic necessities. So your toothpaste, your deodorant, your feminine products, and then maybe to have food for lunch and such, and to have bus fare. So I lived a very, I would say, adult life very, very early. And so kind of in my younger years, probably around ages between age 9 to 10, I was assaulted sexually by a family member, and then was sexually assaulted again by what I thought was a friend, probably around ages 14 to 15. So when those two instances happened, especially the first one, because I did grow up in a Black family, we don't believe in therapy. We don't believe in being transparent and open. Like, there wasn't that full house sort of, oh my God, we're so sorry that this has happened to you. We love you. We're going to support you. That wasn't the case. I grew up with my mom in this abusive family. I just immediately knew, even at the age of 8 and 9, that it wasn't good to say that something happened. And so I just bottled it up. The incident occurred where it's really a jacked up family dynamic. It's my stepfather's grandfather's brother, so I guess a great uncle or whatnot. He had followed me throughout the whole week, and right before we were going to leave, he came into my room where I was while I was sleeping and tried to sexually assault me there. For some reason, I was mute, but I was able to, I always drew pictures when I was growing up. I always liked art. Art was always like my outlet because of the abuse at home. And so I just began hitting him with my notepad. Like, I always had like a big binder paper. And so I kept hitting him, and finally he left because he didn't want to wake the house up. And I didn't find until later that next morning, in retrospect, that he had left money behind. So this definitely caused a lot of, I would say, foreshadowing for my teenage years. And so that I kept inside for a very, very long time. And then had the additional assault when I was 14, 15 with the guy that I thought I knew. And he just repeatedly sexually assaulted me throughout the evening. And again, I couldn't say anything because I allowed myself to be in that environment. And so I felt at that age it was my responsibility. It was essentially my fault for doing so. And so those two things really put a lot of shame, a lot of anger in my life. And then on top of the things I grew up in with a lot of the poverty, just a lot of the things that I was exposed to very early on. So there wasn't this sheltered life. There wasn't this protection that most of the people that I went to school with, because I was a very smart kid. That was like my things. Like, some kids are fit, some kids are real cool kids. I was a smart kid. I was a fat, dark, smart kid. That was what I was. And so I pushed myself in my academics because that was an outlet for me. It was a way for me to escape what I endured every day going home into. So over that period, like around probably 16, 17, because money just wasn't something that came by easily, I started to sell myself for a short bit over the summer. And an incident where I ended up having more people in the place than what I was expecting kind of shook me up a bit to say, this could have been a life-altering or life-ending situation. And so that ended that. But those things definitely put a perspective of unworthiness and pain inside. And so a coping mechanism, some people use drugs. I was not able to. White powdery substances were not in my financial budget at the time. So the thing that I could get access to was food. And so I used food as a coping. So if I was hurt, I ate. If I was lonely, I ate. If I was angry, I ate. And so the weight just piled on and on and on over the course of the years. Even going after I graduated high school and was working because I wasn't able to get into college, the traditional methods because of my family situation. As I was working, that was another just a means of coping with the lack in my life. I wasn't at a point of able to face what was going on. In retrospect, now looking at it, it's like I suffered from depression. I suffered from anxiety for good reason for what I encountered at home. The home situation was very volatile. I never knew what was going to happen. So I was constantly on edge, but the only stable thing was food. Food was always there. A little Debbie cake would always provide that high that I was searching for in my lifetime. So as I got older, and got into college, which I'm a first generation college graduate. I hold 2 BAs. Will be hopefully going back to pick up my MBA soon. Throughout college, it was extremely rough because it was something that no one had done in my family. Like, I had truly did it kind of the Frank Sinatra way, as I did it my way. And so
well, and I think a lot of what you went through, a lot of us go through, poverty at one level or another, the lack of kind of parental guidance and building of that self-esteem that is so important that so many people don't get at all. You know, it's a perfect target, it's a perfect breeding ground for sexual predators, and so you experience that, and then food does make you feel good, and we know the information about food and what sugar does in your body. I mean, you can look at the science behind it, and it makes sense that eating makes you feel good, and that's nothing else in your life is making you feel good. So, but congratulations on college.
thank you.
I mean, through all that shit, you know, you still did that's an incredible accomplishment. Tell me, in growing up, were there people that made a difference that kept you going? We've talked a lot about the trials, the struggles, the sexual abuse and the poverty, but who made a difference to you?
I had a few church members because growing up, religion was a big thing to me because it was another outlet for me. But I had a few church members that were very loving, kind, and even though they didn't, you know, what I thought back then would be, hey, you see someone going through this, help them. They essentially, you know, kind of gave me an ear to hear, but seeing them and being able to get to go out to different places that I didn't get to go to when I was as with my family, that kind of helped. But I would say the overarching theme for me that kind of kept spurring me on was just the notion that if I just work hard, I will be able to enjoy the things that people that I look up to or people that I may be, you know, at church with that have more. If I just work really hard, if I can get into college and get a good degree, I could actually be able to wake up one day and have the things that they have. And so that is what really kept pushing me to go forward.
And you were good at it. You were good at the education.
Correct.
Which, I mean, kudos. It's great that you found something positive in your life. Tell me, through this process, was depression an issue, anxiety an issue, and what was your weight doing? And you're a teenager growing up and going into college.
Correct. I will say definitely depression and anxiety, but I didn't know what their names were. I just thought that was just the way I was. The depression definitely kept me, it stunted my growth through college. So I know for a lot of college, I know for my first degree, I suffered really, really bad bouts of depression, would just not go to class, but would do kind of a Hail Mary towards the end of the semester to get everything in and to be able to get the grade that I needed just about. There was a few times where I wasn't able to hit that mark, which really played with my anxiety of thinking, because I was always told growing up, you'll never be shit, you're not shit, and you will have to pay for people to like you and to want you. So that was always just kind of inbred, and that was from my stepfather. That was very much inbred in me. So I have this kind of chip on my shoulder to, like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to get my degree and I'm going to do these great things. And so my final semester in my first degree, I walked out with a 2.0 GPA, which was totally not like me. But because I basically didn't take the time to self-care and to step back, that's what happened. I graduated because I wanted to show that, hey, look at what I accomplished. I mean, when I got my driver's license at 19, 20, because they didn't want, my stepfather did not want me to learn to drive because that was a way to keep me in bondage. That was the first person I called to say, hey, look at what I did. And so the second degree going around, I definitely was using food constantly as a coping mechanism, but my depression went into hyperdrive. And so February 21st, 2010, I had attempted to take my life while on campus. And the way that was found was that a friend of mine, she knew my moods, and she read something on a Facebook post I did, and that triggered her to start calling me because I wasn't answering. She's like, I can't get to you fast enough. So I called the campus police. And so next thing I knew, as the stuff was starting to hit me, the pills I took, I was just like, I'm hearing this ambulance. I'm like, it would be funny if it was for me, but no one gives a fuck about me. So it isn't for me. And next thing I knew, my front door of my campus apartment was about to explode with the campus police coming in to pick me up, essentially. I always look at that day as being a rebirth of me, because it was I don't know, something. I'm not hyper religious now, but I believe like your higher being, your universal, whatever you call it, will have you go through experiences that are truly like one of a kind and really don't make sense. The experience I had, the police campus were two black officers. Neither one of them wanted to, as quote unquote, take the crazy girl to the psych ward. And so they flipped a coin to decide who was going to have to do this deed. And so the guy who lost the coin toss, he was very begrudgingly, threw me in the squad car, almost choked out being in handcuffs. I'd never been any. And luckily his lieutenant came by and was like, oh my God, she's about to choke out. You can't put her in there like that. And so that whole ordeal of seeing people in the psych ward, or in the ER actually, was really eye-opening. It's like, even though my life is really screwed up, I saw a lady whose blood pressure was like 500 over something because she OD'd on cocaine, and another lady who had stole people's pills, put them in a candy jar, and was just taking stuff at random. And I'm like, you have been able to get a degree, hold down a job, you don't have any kids, you don't do drugs, you don't drink, yet you have still been able to hold it together in spite of what you've encountered. And so that was eye-opening to me. And then hearing the cop, and even now I sometimes think about it, and it's just like mental illness, depression, it's seen for in the Black community, it's not acceptable. And as he said, you're Black, you're not, that's a white girl thing, that's not for Black girls. You're supposed to be strong. And I'm like, that's why I'm here now, trying to hold it together and be strong. And so after that ordeal, the doctor luckily didn't admit me. He's like, you haven't slept in 4 days, and you don't cry, you don't communicate, and that's why you're here. And so, but I want you to go home. I want you to get some sleep. I want you to get a lot of rest, because the pills that you took is going to make you do that. And you need therapy, and therefore you're going to get better. And so after that, I still used food. And so I'd gotten up to like 350 pounds by the time I graduated with my second degree. Looking at past pictures, looking at myself now, it's like, who is that person? It's like my face had morphed into something that is not recognizable. And so that was my kind of where I was going through that time frame.
So you really felt like everything in your situation was overwhelming, and I'm not minimizing that, but when you compared it to what other people were going through, you realized like you really kind of had your shit together. I mean, you were really lucky in a lot of ways, even though it was a really hard situation. Am I kind of getting that right?
You are. I'm a very reflective person, very self-reflective, and I can, even though my stuff was not great, I mean, it definitely, a lot of the experiences were not great, I can still try to count the gratitude even in the really ugly, mucky situation.
Right. And that's a great quality. And I never knew until now, every culture has unique characteristics. And I didn't realize in the Black community that therapy was looked down on, and that you had to hide everything so much and you're supposed to be strong. So that's like in my community, you just get a therapist and you get that shit fixed.
Correct.
But that we don't do it right either. We don't have the answers either. But how interesting that that's how you felt your whole life, and that you just didn't want to do it. So that's a big deal, Christian. I mean, like that, a suicide attempt is a big deal. And you knew now that there was somebody that cared about you also, I would think.
Well, at that point in my life, I was very empty when it came to people of support. Like, I had the one person I did have in my corner was my roommate at the time. She was older, and God bless her, she definitely had to go through some not so great stuff with me being in that depressive mode. But because she was getting her master's in social work, that at least allowed her to have some insight on what it is I'm dealing with. Why am I acting this way? Why am I so withdrawn? And why do I do what I do? And so that definitely helped me, because when I finally got to go home, I remember thinking I was just going to be able to ease into my room. And unfortunately, she locked both locks. She was like, oh no, you're not just going to get to slip in your room this time and think this is just going to go away, because she found the suicide letter when she got home from work. And so she was like, I was frantic trying to find you, but because of HIPAA, laws, they can't release that sort of information over the phone or at all, really and truly. And so that, with her, she definitely helped kind of get me through that really hard period after that attempt.
That's pretty fantastic. So tell me what your degrees are in, just for reference.
Sure. So my first degree is in political science. I had a goal and dream to be a great attorney that was going to show the world that I was somebody. But I came out of college in 2009, and that's when the economy boomed badly. And so I went and got a second degree in interdisciplinary studies with a focus in HR and communications, because I felt like, okay, this will be a little bit more safer avenue for me to get out into the world and find work.
Okay, so very different, and you are the smart girl, that's for sure. So you said your weight got up to 350 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the highest? That was the highest that it was?
That is the highest that I believe, for me, frankly, that I accepted. I probably had been higher, but I wouldn't get on a scale. I knew my health was getting kind of bad at an early age, because I was being told you're going to have to be put on high blood pressure pills. This is why your ankles look like you're 9 months pregnant. Why I was so out of breath. It was definitely not a good phase for me.
You didn't really have a good barometer of what a healthy woman looked like, though, or what eating a healthier diet looked like, did you?
Well, I knew what a healthier woman looked like because I hated her. I felt very like I would never be able to get to that state especially growing up, because I had relatives that were athletic and slim and fit, and I was always pitted against them. And so for me, a way of coping with the fact that I was not attractive, my family told me, if you just get skinny, you'll be, the world will open up to you. People will want to like you. People would want to be around you. I hated that. And so I was just vowed to never be skinny. And then it got to a point when I was growing up that I did develop an eating disorder. I became bulimic. Because I just wanted to be liked. I wanted to be wanted. And this is in middle school, having this sort of binging and purging situation. And so as I got older, it was always something in my back of my mind that if I could just get skinny. So I would go like a few weeks of hardcore working out, eating really healthy, and then something could happen, or I hit a depressive mode, and then that shit would just fall by the wayside.
Okay, so it was a constant yo-yo. So we've got some depression and anxiety in here, a suicide attempt, bulimia. I mean, these are like big things, and you're feeling pretty alone through all of this.
Very much.
And if you weren't alone, it was a negative. People were being negative in your life.
Correct. Like being a Black woman, these are things that we don't talk about, because again, these are quote unquote, air quotes, white girl things. This is not something a Black girl is supposed to have encountered. But I've never been as Black as I am and proud as I am of it. I've never been really truly in the Black community. I've always been kind of a quote unquote black sheep, so to speak, of the Black community, because a lot of the ideologies and philosophies I just never meshed with me. And I believe that the issues I had were people issues. There wasn't a color that was attached to it, not really even gender to a degree, but some of it is gendered because these are, when we're for women, we have always been taught, even throughout the Black community, that you're to look attractive for a man. That is your goal in life, is to be attractive so that you can be found by a great financially set man and be swept off your feet and, you know, live the nice white picket fence life.
I had no idea that was the goal. That's probably where I screwed everything up. So when did the website, you have a blog and you have the website, where did you make the shift? This is a huge shift. So coming from a suicide attempt and negativity and 350 pounds, depression and anxiety, bulimia, like big stuff. Then you have this, that's not the woman that I see. So tell me about how that shift happened and where it came from and what happened with you to make such a dynamic.
Sure. So I graduated in 2010, the end of 2010, so in December, and I was out of school. And so I was like, okay, I have all this time. And so it was right there in that January 1st, you know, resolution. I'm going to lose this weight. I done graduated out of college now. So if I can just get skinny, then my whole world can open to me, can be a brand new world, like Ariel, and that could be my life. And Little Mermaid theme. And so at that point, I got an email from the YMCA, and they had a special where you could do $11 down, $11 a month. And there was a YMCA like 4 minutes from my parents' house, because I was having to stay with them right after college, and I couldn't stand being there, of course. And so I was like, okay, I'll go to the gym. And so it got to where I was working out twice a day, 3 times a week. I'd be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, work out, go to work, go back to the gym again, because it was, again, an outlet for me to get out. And I started slow. Even though I have never been an athlete or anything, things just kind of came to me naturally. Like, okay, don't go crazy trying to work out 5 days a week and all this. Start out with 3 days a week. And so I would go twice, do kind of that fasted cardio, and then do more cardio and some. Then I finally picked up the nerve to go do the weights. With fitness, I love it so much because I like to challenge myself. I know a lot of people, and especially women, we don't want to kind of be around the weight room. We don't want to do anything that's going to make us look kind of weird or off. And so I found love with the weight room, because no women were there, and I enjoyed being able to lift and to be able to build muscle and become stronger. So from the course of 2011 to about 2012, 13, I had lost about 100 pounds naturally, which was great. It was wonderful. It was definitely an ego boost. It felt great that I felt like I had my life in order, because I'd gotten to a point where I was working out 5 days a week without fail. Like, my job at the time, they were like, where's Christian? They was like, what time is it? Oh, it's 4:50. Oh, she's in the bathroom changing clothes. Because I literally would go from work in my workout gear straight to the gym. Like, that was the next destination. Not home, but straight to the gym, and work out for an hour or two. And since I was single, I'm like, heck, Friday nights, that's where I'm at. I'm at the gym. And so I'd gotten down, and I was really loving it. But in the same breath, it was a Band-Aid, because I hadn't dealt with the inner woman and the issues I had about the way I looked at myself, how I would deal when things came along. And so I had a job loss, and it hit me really bad financially, and was able to find another job, but it was extremely low pay. So I was really struggling. And so the depression just crept back, and I kind of went back into that depressive mode. And when I'm depressed, I eat things that are not for me. They're not for my body. And so I'd regain some of it. And then the shame of regaining just kind of put me at an edge. And so where I am now in my life, I am getting over that edge. I found a great therapist. So I'm able to kind of face the issues that I have and I'm able to look at myself with compassion for once, with understanding for once. And that has helped me to that's the reason why I launched my blog. Initially, it was the Plush Cyclist, and I debuted in 2016, and it was really focused in on just the weight loss and the healthy living as a plus size woman, because in our society, plus size and fitness don't coexist for some god awful reason. Like, if you're fat, that means you eat Wendy's cheeseburgers every day and fried chicken. And I'm like, I'm lactose intolerant. I can't eat beef, and I don't eat fried foods. So that is not the image of fat that fits me. And so I hear women all the time that say, well, I'm so uncomfortable. I had a baby. I'm uncomfortable the way I look. Or I've always been a kind of chunky, or I'm skinny, but I don't have curves. And so they felt this certain way. And I'm like, being healthy isn't your worth. They're not connected. Like, that's not a bank account that's connected. So you working out is to make sure that you can live your best life possible without having to worry about your body being a hindrance in the process of doing what you want to do. So if you want to hang glide, great. Don't let your weight be a hindrance because you have maxed out the weight scale of what they'll let you do, or you're so weak that you couldn't go climb up a stairs or climb a mountain if you wanted to because of your physical physique. I always, as I've grown with fitness and lifting weights, because like my peak was being able to leg press 400, no, I take that light back, being able to lift 450 to 600 pounds. Like, that was just 1 or 2 reps. It wasn't the whole set. But being able to do that, I felt kind of badass. I felt sore the next day, but it was awesome. It showed me dedication. It showed me that I have tenacity. Like, I look at myself as a beast, because beasts don't quit. And looking over the course of my life, it's like those tendencies and those characteristics have always been there, because most people would not be able to have gone through the life that I have gone through and be, at least on the surface, I appear normal. I appear to be a normal young Black woman in her 30s who works, has no children, and is not addicted to anything, and is able to articulate quite well, and is able to live life. And so I started that blog to inspire others, to chronologize my journey, and to hopefully at least help someone else who is feeling this way. And then this year, because unfortunately fitness and plus size people, it doesn't garner enough attention. I used to be a makeup artist because I fell in love with that, and I love fashion, because as I lost weight, I started thrifting. So I'm like, I'm going to incorporate the 3 things that really make me happy, which is fitness, of course, fashion, and beauty. And so now that's where the christiansimone.com is kind of has evolved into. But fitness is always the crucifix of everything for me, because without it, you having a pretty face and having pretty clothes really don't matter if you are not living your most healthy life. And healthy isn't just the physique, it's the whole woman.
And that's the first thing you think that's important. And I totally agree that it's the whole woman, because we've all seen someone who's beautiful, man or woman, and then the first thing that comes out of that person's mouth, you're like, oh my gosh, and they're not as pretty anymore. Right. And so being pretty, certainly that you don't corner anything on that one. It is definitely the whole woman. And that's the first thing. In your most recent blog post, you talk about how healthy looks different on everyone. And if you are seeing your doctor, like I get my blood work done every year. I have a mammogram every year because I'm that age. If you're getting the things done that you're supposed to get done, and you have the green light that you're healthy, weight is not the only indication of being healthy. It's one of the indications of being healthy. So the other thing you talk about is making time for what's important. And I think of that as self-care. You're looking at it as like, if there's things that you want to do, like you said, you want to hang glide or something, you should figure out a way to get them done. And self-care, I think, is also stuff like you're saying, if you enjoy something 3 times a week, do it 3 times a week. Like, take care of yourself. So what else have you done? You do a lot of the fitness stuff to take care of yourself. What else have you done? And how is food involved in all that?
So for me, I have, as again, I've been told so many times, and even by white people, that I am not black because I love green juice, I love green smoothies. Um, I
It's
really,
not about color. You're right.
not at all. But that's why I have coworkers and they're very Caucasian. They're like, "You're not black at all." I'm like, lies. I look at myself in the mirror. I know what I am. But I found a love for green smoothies. And again, with the workouts and losing weight, it made me want to try more. Like I'm always about one-upping myself. Like it's not about competing. And I used to be a very competitive person with everybody else, and that got me nowhere. So I'm like, I'm going to compete with me. And I'm like, okay, what else could I do to make myself as healthy as I could be? And so I started doing the green smoothies and then doing green juices and doing smoothie fasts and green juice fasts. I really don't eat fried foods at all. Like most people look at me and they look at me dumbfounded like, what? That's like a black person's like flag. You eat fried chicken. I'm just like, yeah, fried chicken and me don't agree. When I lost so much, my body was like, so hard stop on beef, on pork, and we don't like fried anything, and we prefer vegetables, fish, and water. Like that's what my body prefers, and so that's what I try to do to give it that. So with my job right now, I travel a lot, like very much a lot. I'm always on a plane, so it's sometimes difficult to eat as healthy as I like. But when I'm at home, I'm drinking my green juices. I have my juicer. I have my Vitamix to make sure I'm getting that nutrients in. I'm ensuring that I eat a very colorful diet because I know that's how I'm going to get my nutrients. I make sure I take my supplements, the natural supplements, to keep me as balanced as I possibly can. I'm sitting outside of Nordstrom's right now. So ways of self-care is, going to buy something that I really, really feel would make me feel pretty, or, indulging in the makeup item, taking time to self-reflect is a big, big, big thing to me for self-care, because without it, it put band-aids on things, and then it festers and then it grows. And now I look at life as, if you let yourself do that, it's like a suitcase that's overpacked. If it hits and explodes, all your business is out in the streets. So your panties may have flown over in baggage claim, and your bra's over somewhere else. It fell against some guy's foot. And so now you're having to like go through all this junk to get to where you can actually zip up your luggage. And so I really make sure to look at self for that. And with fitness, it's a continuation. Sometimes I'm in a good steady 3 to 5 times a week. Sometimes it's once a week, and I have to say, don't beat yourself up. You are doing the best that you can, because I look at fitness as a way to help your whole life. So yes, you start to feel better about your stuff. You start to look good. Your clothes start getting, you can buy smaller clothes and all that good stuff. But I really do believe, for me, as I lost weight, it helped me to also lose the negativity that I had about myself, and the negativity that I allowed in my life. So for me, with my family, for instance, as of recent, I've had to cut them out of my life. And it hurts, because that's just, again, another Black family thing. You just don't do that because they're family. But I'm old. You are responsible for what you allow. So if you allow this, then you have to deal with the consequences. However, you have it within your power to change whatever it is you want. So if it's a sucky ass job, you'll get motivation to say, fuck that, I'm going to go try something else. And, I have my cycle instructor certification because I picked up indoor cycle. I adore cycle. So it was scary because I was the biggest girl in the room, but I still was able to get my certification. It could be a man or woman in your life that you're like, you know what? I don't deserve this. I deserve better. And again, with losing weight, that has helped me to want a healthier life holistically, not just the physical.
Perfect. I love that you said that. And you also addressed something else about the competition. You want to compete with all these people. It's amazing we live in a society where every piece of media we see on the internet or in magazines, 100% of it has been altered. So it's airbrush, it's touched up, stuff's done to it. So nobody looks like those pictures that we're comparing ourselves to, because even that person doesn't look like themselves. It's all airbrushed. And then we have a lot of issues with the mental illness behind eating disorders and obesity and the issues with food, and that's a direct contradiction. And you brought up that competition. It should be the person in the mirror.
Correct. That's the
So,
only person I compete with.
and yours is going to look totally different from mine and the person next to us, which is how it should be because we're all individuals. So I love that you brought that up, the competition part of it, and that it is holistic. It's not just your weight. So what else can you do for self-care? You got an education and you continue to do that. You got a better job and you'll do that again if you have to. It's not just physical, that's emotional. You went to therapy and that was part of your self-care and helping. Tell me, and you drink green smoothies. You're just going against all the norms. So what else, what advice would you give to your younger self, to that woman who's really struggling with any of these issues? What advice would you give?
I would tell my younger self, I would sit her down and tell her, you are an amazing person. You are worth every fight, every ounce of money, every ounce of effort to make you be whole again and to help you be free of this damage. You didn't do anything wrong. You being born wasn't the reason for anyone to do anything to you. You being poor is not a reason for you to have suffered the way you have suffered. However, you are going to have to fight for what it is that is right for you. And I would focus on helping her to understand that the life that you were sold on isn't reality. I was sold on so many different things of if you get skinny, if you make this amount of money, if you get a man, you will then have this wonderful life. It'll be the Christmas miracle of having the wonderful life. And that is a myth. Everything, you can have all those things, but if you are not whole inside, then you won't get to where you want to be. So I want you to focus on fixing the internal. So get the therapist, journal, get a good support system of friends. You know, your family doesn't have to be family by blood. It can be who you choose. As an adult, you get to choose who your family is. You don't have to, you're not bounded anymore to be with family that you were blood bound with. And from there, as you start to build momentum, things will start to fall into place. You do not have to do everything at once. You do not have to do things that are not fun to you. And as you do that, understand that your life is important and your contributions to society are extremely important. So therefore, you deserve to be whole. And the world is an afterthought in the sense that they get the honor and the privilege to even know that you exist and that they even get to be in your presence. But you are so, so worthy of everything that is great, that is wonderful, and that is bright, and that is you.
Amen. Holy cow. I couldn't have summed it up better. And that's the information I want to pass on to other people. Do whatever you need to do to get yourself healthy. And that's not just physical, in every aspect. Whatever you need to get yourself healthy is what you should do. And we're not in it alone. We all have struggles. They may be different, but our feelings about them tend to be very similar, I found.
I agree.
So tell me what the goals are. Tell me some of your vision. I know you've changed the blog a little bit. You have a lot of really great fitness and makeup, and the beauty stuff's awesome. So where do you want to take this?
I really am starting to get more comfortable as a blogger and vlogger. So I ended up starting a podcast because I felt that I understand like business and marketing because I love business and entrepreneurship. I ended up starting a podcast that is the Christian Simone Show. It's on iTunes, and it encapsulates more of my life and the journey and the reflection and those nuggets that I believe can help other people, because I believe beauty is great. I love it, but there's more to me than just that. So I've been able to share my struggles, and it's not always cute, but I really do believe that things that you encounter aren't necessarily for you. It's to help other people as well in that process. And so I'm hoping for that to evolve into even more. I have been trying to push more and being able to work with bigger brands that will encapsulate that, there isn't just one sort of plus size girl. There's another kind of hurdle that in the blogger sphere, a blogger or plus blogger has to be an hourglass shape, small waist, big booty. That is the norm. And I'm having to kind of continue to push forward to show that being plus size doesn't mean that you all have to look like XYZ. And again, being plus size doesn't mean that we don't work out and we don't focus on being healthy. And we don't just do little bitty workouts and like very light active. With a brand that I am a fitness ambassador with, I do YouTube videos and it shows doing a lot of high impact workouts because again, people don't believe that big girls can do that. And so that is kind of my focal point, is to show the world that I'm not going to show you or tell you rather what I can do. I'm just going to show you. And that hopefully if you're smart enough, you will then be able to see and be in awe that, hey, there's not one size that fits all in this world. And that hopefully will help other people feel that they can be very much shameless about their badassery and want to show the world that women aren't just one size fits all. And I'm hoping as I do that, I will be able to develop myself as an entrepreneur and be able to help more people within that realm.
That's exceptional. So I want to touch, you have the YouTube channel. I want to touch on the podcast a little bit.
Sure.
Do you do interviews on your podcast?
I have not started doing interviews on there as of yet. I wanted to because it's still very new, I wanted to get some episodes under my belt and get kind of the flow of what I want there. But it definitely in the near future is something I do want, because I know my story is phenomenal, but I know that there are other people whose story could be just as instrumental as well.
I totally agree. I absolutely agree with that. And that's part of why I started my podcast. I thought, well, I could tell my story, but I want to hear everybody else's story. So that's a great way to segue into that. So I want people to know that they can contact you. I contacted you. You're you're very open to being contacted. You're open about your story and your life and being healthy and fit, and that you have a lot of things going on in your life between education and degrees and work and everything that you're doing, and you handle it with aplomb. I'm so honored to have been able to meet with you.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Any last words?
I will say my I guess life mantra has been be very, very, very comfortable being uncomfortable, because that is where you will actually experience the best life you can ever have.
Amen. That is a perfect way to end. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you so much for listening in to Jen Taylor Rerouting. Like, share, and of course comment. I welcome input with attitude. Get a copy of my book on Amazon, Hello, My Name is Warrior Princess, or check out my website, jentaylor.net. And if you still want more, sign up for one of my coaching packages.